Peru. Get started on some more sculpting. Rats, welcome. How are you doing? Vespers Croc. Yeah, I'm enjoying learning about this one so far. Really cool. We know if the music is alright. I'm wondering if it's a little bit loud. So, I'm thinking about what I'm going to use. So last week we worked a lot on the head. Honestly, like we're gonna be working a ton more on the head. It's gonna be like a constant thing. We'll probably be working on that until we're fiddling with that right up to the very end, where we get texture and stuff. So I'm thinking this week taking a little bit of a break from that. Another area of the body. The arms, something like that, just to kind of start filling out something else down here. Seeing how it goes. I might do a bit of work on the head just now to like figure this area out so it's not so separate. That's the plan. So let's just go with that. Much thinking. So this jaw muscle here is what I want to address because I just feel like it's a big volume and it's right now it's making the Peru feel like it's got like gills or something. So I actually want to incorporate that into the neck, and I'm taking a look at some references. See how crocs kind of how they look. A lot of them have these big like jowl areas. I'll show you this right here. So I'll probably get that in there and then like blend it in a little bit, and then see if we can get to some work on the legs. A bit loud, in contrast to my voice. Okay, thank you, Adrian. Thank you. About half. Probably pull my mic a little bit closer. Sorry, my voice isn't like the type of voice that carries very well. I'm pretty soft spoken, which is not good for the stream. I'll do what I can. All right, let's get to it. Let's see. Is this a Dynamish? It is. So I think I'm just going to merge this down. We'll Dynamish this together. It's going to take forever because there's a lot of points to deal with. Smoothing. working in the shape that I want here. I may actually be able to merge the rest of the head with the main body. I can actually blend this area fully in here, which is good, but also a little bit scary because the head will be totally connected to everything else. Yeah, probably. Save. I've been saving a version for every stream, so I think it'll be cool later on to like go through each stage, like see how far we got in every stream. Maybe do like, it might be cool to do like a time lapse or something, that progress. Mitch, hello. How you doing? Welcome, welcome. Okay, so that's merging pretty nicely. Let's kind of, the mesh was kind of reacting a little strangely in that little spot there. Not sure why. Trying out this new matte cap. Pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of Monster Clay. Anybody knows what that stuff is? It's a pretty nice clay to work with. I haven't sculpted with it. I mostly use it to make molds. But it's a really nice clay that can be melted down and then it solidifies again. Evolution Hexagon, hi. What am I working on today? I am working on a little bit of the neck area here, merging some of this muscle into the rest of the form of the neck. And then I think what we're gonna do is take a little bit of a break from the head, because we've been working on the head a lot. I think the past two streams have been focused on the head mainly. And we're gonna do some work on the arms, I think. Arms and legs. See how far we get. Just wrapping up a little bit of work on corgi. Yeah, his little fingies. Yeah, we'll be working on those today. Try to make them a little less, less skeletal, I don't think we're gonna get into like the scales of them today. I'm still mostly working on secondary forms that are going to be like underneath the scales, making sure those are nice and well structured. And then we'll be able to add scales on top. I don't know what's going on with this. Let me see. What's up with this mesh? Oh, it looks like it might not have welded together. Let me see. Huh. That's why it's not. No, that's dynamics. Let's try another dynamesh. Because that was not welded. That's why it was reacting so weird to my brush. Feels better. It was getting really lumpy there, and I didn't like it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take this and smooth out a lot of this. Just to kind of control the surface a little bit more. Okay, so Mitch Johnson, how do you check whether the upper and lower jaw fit together when your mouth is closed? So right now it's a little bit difficult to do that. But basically what I have to do is mask out the jaw. Mask it out. Like that. And then pivot the whole jaw to see if it fits in there, which is kind of not great because you see the distortion that it adds in here, but that's kind of what we have to do until I get a low res that reacts a little bit better to deformation. That's kind of just the way that has to be checked. I still need to go in and adjust the teeth so that way they like interlock properly. But we've done a couple of passes on the jaw to check if it actually closes and doesn't leave like a weird looking overhang. As I was saying last time, the Puru is going to have a bit of an overbite, like no matter what we do, just because of the way the jaw works. You know, this part of the jaw is going to be further out than the lower jaw, which is going to tuck in here. But we've kind of fixed it so it's not so extreme. But that's just kind of like that's kind of an awkward part of sculpting in ZBrush, I guess. I think with dinosaurs, I've dealt with that a lot, especially I don't know what it is, but working from skeletals of dinosaurs, a lot of the times I find that when you hinge the jaw to close the jaw up, the jaw doesn't actually fit properly. Like I can like you can follow the skeletal diagrams like perfectly and then try to close the jaw and it just won't close. Or it'll look goofy. So it's just kind of one of those things that has to be checked and rechecked, and you have to keep an eye on it. Because during the course of sculpting, you know, there's material that gets added, material gets taken away. It can get away from you without gradually, without really being super noticeable. So we'll check that again later on down the line. This to me feels, oh, that feels much better, I think. I'm starting to get into a little bit of detail that I probably shouldn't, but it's fun to kind of like test it and see how it's gonna react. Even though it's a little bit premature. Corgi. I'm always so impressed with artists who can use Blender or Blender adjacent programs. If I could understand it, I'd be unstoppable. Yeah, well, I'd encourage you to keep trying to figure it out. Blender isn't like, honestly, Blender is probably one of the best places to start because it's fairly similar to a lot of other programs. Like, I think, like, I've used Blender and Maya, and they're kind of, I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they're much more similar to each other than Blender would be to ZBrush. ZBrush is definitely kind of its own, it's kind of a weird program that does things its own way, I've noticed. I'm actually pretty glad that I've learned ZBrush first, because I feel like if I learned ZBrush after learning Blender or some other program, I would have just been lost. Like, it's just so different. It's kind of like if you use Photoshop or something, and then you go to like Coral Painter or like Sketchbook Pro or Clip Studio Paint, you can kind of figure out how all of those programs work because they kind of Photoshop-ish. ZBrush definitely doesn't fit that sort of kind of convention, I suppose. I've actually been thinking of doing a sculpt in Blender, seeing how I feel about it, like from beginning to end. I think it has a lot of potential. It's just I haven't had time to actually go in there and test it out. Arakui, hi. How's it going? How's your week been? But yeah, I would encourage you to, I mean, if you have an interest in working with it, I'd definitely try to figure it out because I think it's worth it. Kind of extruding that, or like sculpting that really sharply. I guess I could merge this. Merge the front limb into the body as well, but I'm not sure if I'm willing to go that far today. I'm still a little bit iffy on the positioning of this. I might just have this deltoid like wrap around and incorporate the arm, and then we'll merge it down later. Because I'm not sure if I'm ready to commit to that just yet. I know why it's doing. Evolution hexagon, what program do I use to model? Are you talking about like low poly stuff or just like the sculpting like I'm doing now? Modeling, like if we're talking about like doing like box modeling stuff, I'll be using I'd probably choose Blender over ZBrush. But if it's something organic, Blender I mostly use for anything like hard surface, armor, architecture, even though I don't do architecture too often. Mechanical stuff, retopology, I use Blender for a lot. But for organic stuff, mostly I'll be using ZBrush. But maybe, I don't know, maybe next sculpt, whatever that may be, after we finish the Peru, even though we still have a ton of work to do on the Peru, maybe that will be done all in Blender. Might be a nice like trial. Although I don't know if I'd want to like learn how to sculpt in Blender on stream. Probably wouldn't be too interesting seeing me struggle. ZBrush is definitely like very familiar and very like I feel very secure and safe in ZBrush because I've used it for so long. I mean, at this point, I've been using ZBrush for like 10 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. It doesn't feel like 10 years. It flows better with the deltoid. Mercury, you don't have more or less plans yet for what Dino might be next? No. I don't think we would announce it like right now, even if we did. So you're kind of right about the classified info, but we have not discussed I know yet. I think it's still kind of early, right? The Peru has so much more to work on. So we'll be working on the Peru for quite a while still. So I really want to be able to document like the whole process, and we'll see how that goes. Like maybe, you know, I'd be interested in your feedback, you know, when it's all said and done with the Peru, and like what parts of the process you guys enjoy seeing. Like maybe it's just more the sculpting part and the texturing part, and maybe we don't have to show like the UVing and like retopology side of things, because I just from my perspective, I think those might be the most like, I mean they are interesting in their own way. Like if you're a 3D modeler, like I think like I find those types of things interesting because I'm always interested in learning how other people do that stuff, but from like someone who's just interested in Path of Titans as a game, not necessarily who is an artist, I'm not really sure how they would perceive that, because it's very like retopology and UVing is kind of like, I don't know, like artist math. You know, that's the best thing I can say to describe it. It's like it's more technical, worrying about topology, flow, and all that stuff, distortion in the mesh, and optimization for the game and stuff like that. We honestly, if the fact you are streaming this isn't affecting you way too much, I would love to keep watching the streams. Cool. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, we're definitely gonna go through all of that, you know, the whole process for this guy. I think it'll be cool to document. I am a little bit nervous about going through topology and the UV because so my background is more leaning towards like high res, like hero sculpts for film, like those types of like very high resolution. They're not worried too much about like they're just more worried about like detail. It's less about optimization, even though that is a factor. But it's not as strict as a game is, because a game has to hit very specific budgets for like polygons and stuff and textures. So like the optimization side of that is pretty tight, I would say. So that is a little bit new to me, but we'll do it. We'll get through it. The topology is really one of the things that is going to be interesting, because I don't think I retopologize meshes in the way that a lot of people do. I actually had to retopologize a mesh for a different project not too long ago. And yeah, the way I go about it, I think it gets good results. Like I'm not gonna. I think it really results in a good mesh, especially for games, because I think it's pretty optimized. But it's definitely not something that you're gonna see like if you type in, you know, how to retopologize a model into Blender, into YouTube, sorry. The types of tutorials you're gonna see on that aren't gonna necessarily be the way I'm doing it, you know. Which might be a good thing. It also might be kind of like other artists who are popping into the stream might be like, what the heck is this guy doing, type of thing. But you'll have to trust me. Marakui, I might have messed up here, but you said that because of streaming and having to read chat, you don't really get into the flow state so much. I guess I suppose so, but it's not impacting me, like, you know, too much, you know. Like I would say in terms of percentage wise, like if I were just sculpting on my own and, you know, completely on my own, like I do normally, and let's say that's me operating at 100%, right? Even though it's not really. Then streaming, I would say I'm still getting about, you know, 90% of that efficiency there. You know, it's not like that taxing, especially as I keep going, you know. Like today actually, and like last stream, I've been feeling pretty good about about like the flow I've been getting into and the amount of stuff that I've been working on. Because if you break it down into like hours, right? We've been streaming for, this is our 7th stream, so we've had 6, 2 hours each. That's 12 hours. So out of 12 hours of working, right? That's like a day and a half of work, and I'm here. That's about where I'd expect to be if I were just working normally. Like I can block out a whole model in a day. You know, maybe a little bit further, you know, but not by too much. So we're okay. You know, I enjoy the stream. I enjoy being able to share this stuff with you guys and chatting with you guys. I don't normally get to like share my process when I'm working on a project, because a lot of the stuff's like NDA, of course, you know, so it's all under wraps, and I don't get to share anything about the model until the project releases or whatever, and by then it's like months later, you know. So this is good. Cotton Corgi, nice to see Purussaurus representation. Dinosuchus and Sarcosuchus are nice and all, but I feel like they're all anyone talks about when it comes to ancient crocodile morphs. Yeah, I definitely like. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I was definitely like I haven't sculpted Dinosuchus, but I've done a Sarco. I get why people love them for sure, but this guy, he's pretty unique. He's got something cool going on with him. That's, you know, I like his proportions. I like the skull shape. It feels very strong, very bulky. He's definitely grown on me. Like, I mean, that skull is just so cool. And the size of it too, like, I mean, this size comparison, it's unfortunate that we don't have more of the body, but just see it compared to those other two guys. I mean, he's definitely a big guy, so I'm glad that he's got a highlight here in this game. For a good shot of, so this is the kind of stuff I'm looking for here, sort of underneath of the jaw. That's what I'm trying to get out here. I don't know if I need quite as much of a overlap here. Give it a little bit. More alligator, which I love. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun figuring out the osteoderms and stuff on the back. Pinched for some reason. There. Folding in on itself. So this is what the Mosasaurus scene from Jurassic World was based on. That would have been cool, you know. Instead, they had some sort of big croc. So I'm starting to lay in like hints of those little scale tracks there, but I need to super important. What's most important is the overall form, which I think is there. So I'm gonna move on to the arm now. This is a good one. It's kind of funny too because of the way he's got his like stretched out there, but it's good to see like the backside and how it merges into the rest of the body. So this is kind of what I'm going for. This guy's very slim. I want something much more bulky like this. So we'll try to combine those two ideas. Even this right here is cool. So let's see. Autosave. Actually, I should save it just in case, because I don't want it to crash and leave me stranded. I think I need to not emphasize this deltoid too much, although I do want him to feel nice and strong here. I don't want to give him like Hulk muscles or anything super exaggerated. He's not like make him like a superhero type croc, if that's even a thing. So it's like this kind of balancing of defining the muscles so that way there's definitely like landmarks and stuff. You can see the anatomy, but not making it so analytical, I suppose. To the point where you can see every single little muscle, because that starts to feel artificial as well. He's got some cool little I might do those today. So he's got some cool, looking at these scales. These here. I think I might actually extrude those today because they're such a big part of the form that I don't think I can really ignore them. It's not like they're secondary details like the scales here. They're actually affecting the silhouette. So I want to get those in as soon as I can. So we're probably going to need to think about that in terms of design. So let me kind of wait on that a bit. I do know that they're going to be here someplace. How many and how big they are is something I'm not sure about. And we'll get a little bit into the creases and stuff of the hand as well. These fingers are feeling a bit skeletal, tendinous. It's kind of chubby. lobby is the idea. Islander, it's looking good. Thank you. Yeah, we're making some progress on this, on the arms and stuff today. So I hope by the end of the stream it'll. I kind of always say this, I guess, but I kind of want it to feel more and more like a croc. I think we won't get that full like impression just yet until we actually start getting into the scales. But it'll be closer, for sure. This is going to be kind of a hard balance because I don't want it to feel tendony, like skeletal and tendinous, like I mentioned, but it does need to feel like there's structure under it. That's the hard part. So like I'm trying to build on top of the form. I'm not trying to get rid of any of the form, if that makes sense. So there is a bit of webbing. I've seen a bit of webbing between middle fingers, not so much on. So between digit 1 and digit 2, I don't see a ton. Between these 3 fingers here, there's some webbing. So I'll need to either pull that out of the mesh or add a mesh in there that accounts for that volume. It might be easier just to add one. Add a sphere in here. Flatten it. Flatten this a little bit. One thing I learned from one of my recent projects, I can't go into detail too much on what it was, but it involves some very thin areas on a mesh, and I learned that for the purposes of like a game, making meshes like super thin for like wings, fins, feathers, stuff like that is going to give me a lot of problems later. So I'm actually gonna make these a little bit thicker than they actually would be, because I know that later on when we're going into retopology, reprojection, texturing, baking, all of that stuff, these areas are going to be a pain. So you're going to get to see me like, well, I hope you don't get to see me very frustrated, but these areas do cause a lot of frustration. So I'm trying to plan for that later on. And this type of thing, I mean, it might look very exaggerated, very thick here, but when it's in game, you won't be able to tell. It's such a small part of the hand, and you're going to be moving around. You're going to be, the hand's going to be pressed against the ground, swimming in the water, like all that stuff. When it's at scale in game, you're not going to be able to tell how thick that is, like that it's extra thick or not. That's one thing that's kind of surprising too, is like I was looking at some other video game models just to like break them down. I like watching videos like that on YouTube too. Sometimes people will do breakdowns of like big AAA video game models, mostly character stuff, which is kind of like, it's cool, but it's not as useful to me. Like I was watching a guy who was looking at Kratos from God of War, that mesh, just kind of breaking down how they did it. And you learn a lot of cool stuff. But I got a hold of a model of Leviathan from Final Fantasy. Which one was it? I think it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think it's that Leviathan. And I was looking at the fins on it because I was wondering how they did the fins. Like, is it like a very thin mesh? Is it like a card? Like one single plane that they added? Like, I was just curious to see how they did all of that stuff. And it's actually like the fin for Leviathan is very, very thick. It's much thicker than you think it would be. So I found that pretty interesting, and I think it's probably for the reasons that I'm like, it causes issues. Thin meshes cause issues with baking, cause issues with reprojection if you need to reproject the mesh to get like detail back. So I think that's probably why. But the mesh, the model looks amazing regardless, which is really cool to see. Islander, he's a very thick croc. Gonna be quite the view in game. Yeah, he's gonna be cool. I kind of like to imagine a little bit about how it would look like from like a game camera. It's not the best thing, but if you're playing, how it would look controlling him. I'm not quite sure how the camera sits in Echoes. Like, he'd be back here somewhere controlling him. Heat to this potion. Isolate the hand because his body's getting. So I'm going across the form, and I'm thinking about all this stuff here. So the way that these muscles go into the base of the fingers. Missing a bit of that muscle. dynamesh that together because it needs to intersect right there. It feels like. It up. If I look at the hand here, like I'm not seeing a ton of definition in between the bone. It's more like one big kind of like mitten shape. And the scales are contributing to that a lot. So that's what I'm going to try to go for, is that shape. Ipsy, looking awesome. Thank you. It's like if you smashed a croc and a hippo together. Yeah, it has a bit of that vibe, yeah. Especially in the mouth, with the kind of like tusk teeth at the front. I'm just gonna blend these together just by going across the form. Just kind of slowly, I want to kind of creep up on it. I don't want to just like go straight for it, because if there's a point that I like, as I'm building up, I'll like stop there. See if that's working or not. And then if I need to, I can always add more. Scales on the hands are so thick. They really impact the shape. So I'm considering just kind of going for some of those. Maybe the ones on the back of the fingers and stuff. I'm not sure yet. Kind of I'm trying to keep to like, I'm trying to be a little bit more regimented and strict with myself, I guess, which is why I haven't jumped into like a ton of scales or wrinkles yet. I'll do the necessary ones, but I kind of just know that if I start doing that, like that's all I'm gonna want to do, and I don't want to have to redo like secondary forms. Just want to have them done and then get the scales on top. So it's very like it's kind of a fight in my head right now, because like scales are really fun for me, at least, to do. They can be really fun, and they can be really tedious depending on how I'm feeling and how many I have to do, and you know, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but generally they're really fun and an interesting part for me to do. And because I think they're going to be you know, so important to the look and feel of this guy, I'm kind of tempted to go into it, but I think I should resist that for the moment, because it could be potentially a bit of a waste of time right now. And I'm trying to be efficient. can see that. I think you can see like those forms starting to fill out. Starting to look like more of my references, which is good. I have a reference of the underside of the palm somewhere. At least I thought I did. I need to grab one. Was one really good one that I might need to dig out of my files if I can't find it. Search. I found a few actually. I have these saved somewhere. It's probably not going to be efficient for me to go dig around and find them. So I'll just pull them back out. Google search. It's the same one. So basically these types of pads is what I'm trying to get the effect of. So there's some pretty strong creases around the base. Especially this two, the pinky finger. Oh, this one, seems like these three fingers are like grouped separately in like a diagonal crease, which is interesting. I'm seeing that happen quite a few times here. It's happening in pretty much all of these references. So that's pretty interesting. I'm wondering, it must be that just that these fingers are more mobile. They kind of like close like this. And these other two are kind of just more static. That's probably what's going on. Emphasizing these pads. And then one thing that I'm going to probably do, you'll see it later when we start actually detailing things. But what I'm going to do is in the references, you can see how these scales feel a bit worn. You can see areas where they're actually like flat or flattened against the. They're not so much like in relief against the rest of the scales, and I kind of want to incorporate that detail. So that's pretty easy to do later on. Because what will happen is like we'll have little scales on there, like this, and then I'll take like the trim, flatten them down, so that way they feel like they're like old and worn down because of their contact with the ground so often. So that'll be cool. That up there. Sounds like a cool detail, but one barely anyone is going to notice though. Yeah, true, but I notice it. So, and I'm the one making the sculpt, right? So, like I it's a good point, but like I always try to set my sort of standards and expectations for the sculpt, you know. I'm trying to deliver the highest quality product, I guess. I don't like calling my work a product, but technically it is, as I can. And I'm not, even though it might be like a really subtle detail, and something that a lot of people may not notice or get a chance to like, you know, the general audience may not be looking for that detail, right? But I still want to put it in there because I'm trying to make this as realistic as possible. I mean, I know like when I'm sculpting, I'm like sculpting things for like, of course it needs to look cool. Of course it needs to like appeal to people who are going to enjoy the game or whatever I'm working on, whether it's like a game, action figure or whatever it may be. You know, I'm making that for, you know, a general audience that will appeal, will have like will be interested in that product, but I'm also making it for me and like for other people like me who like to get into the, like I will in a video game, I will like stop and I will pan the camera around and like get into like all of the little nooks and crannies of the models. Like I like checking that stuff out. I like seeing what the artist has done and what details they put in, and you know what meshes are separate meshes and not separate meshes, and like how they, you know, did they do the pores in the skin? Like, you know, I get in there and I look at all that stuff, and I know other people do too. So it's all going in. That's not the finger. Oh, okay. I thought for a second that I was on the wrong finger. just gonna define this claw. Another thought that to consider, right? Like just from like a practical standpoint, like if the game, if the models were ever to be used, like if you wanted to do like a cinematic for the game, right? You wanted that to look really, really good. You would probably use a higher resolution, higher texture model, or detailed model. So if I'm prioritizing just like game resolution model stuff, then yeah, maybe a lot of the details probably won't read on like a 2K texture. But if somewhere down the line the game did require something like a cinematic quality model, we would have to go back and redetail a game res model, or like, yeah, pretty much redetail it or like redo it somehow in order to get that detail back. And I'd much rather just like detail everything the first pass and not have to do like, I'm kind of like future proofing it by just adding more detail than is necessary. That way we wouldn't have to really come back and do too much work to get this to like cinematic kind of quality model if that was required ever. It's not something that, I don't know, I don't think I've talked to Islander about that specifically, but it's something that I think is good to think about. And it also saves me some work, right? Because I don't have to revisit the same model multiple times. As much as I enjoy sculpting the Purussaurus, you know, by the end of this sculpt, I'm gonna be ready to move on to something else. There's only so much, like, I enjoy like variety. I want to jump around, move to different things. So having to come back to like an older model that you spent like a ton of time on is a bit of a... I've had to do it before, but I don't. If I can avoid doing it, I will. And this just kind of helps. So I'm starting to, I think this area is feeling okay. I may need to find a different reference of the hand, because I'm wondering about this area here, because it feels, I'm not seeing webbing in a lot of these references between the first digit and the second, but the first digit in a lot of these feels different for some reason. I think it's, maybe I need to shorten this. feels like shorter and much thicker in a lot of these, and it's causing like the space in between here is not. Okay. So that feels a bit better. I think it's this first, I mean the second digit here that I may need to work on just a little bit more because it's still feeling a bit like skeletal tendony. I should get these claws into shape as well. First one. Insert that just a little bit to give it a border. First that, and I'm gonna do just inflate it just a little bit to get that border to be less thin because it's really, really thin right now. Probably should. This is going to look a little crunchy. There's not enough resolution here. Once I dynamesh it, it should have a nicer border. I can always come back and reinforce it later. Dynamesh it. A little bit higher. Just want sort of like a little bit of a ridge there to define that shape. Come back and just a bit more. Do the same thing to this finger. So I want the tips of these to feel pretty blunt. I don't want them to be, they're not like cat claws. They're always in contact with the ground. Or, I mean, not while they're swimming, I suppose, but when they're like walking on land, they're going to be in contact with the ground majority of the time. So these I think should feel much more worn out. That's how these guys have them too. They're not like, yeah, they're not like, you know, eagle talons or something. They're not grabbing stuff with their hands and touching onto their prey. They're just walking on these guys. Shouldn't feel super sharp. Probably form soft. Just checking it out, see what else can be worked on. I think for now that's probably good with the hand at least. Majority of that is there, so leave it for now. I'm gonna start working on the forearm area. So I want to get those these scoots for, yeah, I think they're just scales, projections from the scales. I don't think they're actually osteoderms because haven't seen preserved like bone in that area. But I'm gonna get that detail in. I'm trying to consider, there's a bit of design here. It's not just like mask a little thing out and pull it out. So let me see. I want to consider how it's going to feel. So sketch really quick. Try and figure that out. And then incorporate that back into the sculpt. So let me take a screenshot. What are you doing? So right now I'm just I am just doing a quick concept sketch basically, so I can figure out what I want to do with these scales on this area here. Doing a bit of planning, so that way I'm not like wasting a ton of time on this sculpt. It's much faster for me to just get a quick sketch out there than it is for me to like sculpt on the model, see if it works. If it doesn't work, I have to undo it, redo it, back and forth kind of thing. I'm gonna do my best to like figure it out and get it done the first time. All right, so here we go. I'm thinking about the flow that I want here. Blocking out sort of a bigger shape. And then trying to find a good reference. Seems like it starts up here in the elbow. Like a small little overlap. And then it gradually gets bigger and bigger until about down here where it stops. Well, there's a big projection and then it gets smaller again and then goes into the flow of the scales that comes around the hand. Then there's like these like support, a row of like kind of support scales. So you're getting a glimpse right now of the process that we're going to have to go through to actually map out all these scales. Because they're very structured. Like they happen in rows and they wrap around the form in a very specific way. And I'm going to try to take I'm trying to take all of that into account. So you're gonna, once we start getting into the scales, you're gonna see me do a lot of this stuff. Some of it might be directly onto the mesh, like I might sketch, like poly paint it out onto the mesh and then plan it out that way. But I think some of it will probably be done in Photoshop like this too. So it could be something like that. I feel like maybe that's a little bit too many. Not right now. I do, yes, Mercury. I have references for pretty much all of the areas I've been working on so far. The thing about this too is that it's an actual like anatomical feature that's on the croc itself, right? But then in addition to that, it's a design opportunity because I can design the shape of these scales to be to kind of like enhance the feeling of the character, of the creature. So there's a realistic way to do it, and I want it to feel realistic and grounded. But then this is kind of what I was talking about maybe a couple streams ago. It needs to feel realistic, but I'm gonna be pushing it just a bit beyond like super grounded in certain areas, not everywhere. So instead of like an example would be like, let's say there was a scale on a crocodile that looked like this, right? Maybe on the back of the neck or something. Well, what I'm talking about pushing the design is like, instead of just doing a normal little bump like that, I would maybe push it just a little bit more, make it a little bit more pointy or something. So that way it looks more aggressive and kind of supports because this is a big, mean guy, right? We want him to feel intimidating. We want him to feel impressive. The tone of the game needs to be considered, which is more like, at least from what Islander was speaking to me about before, a little bit more kind of more like horror aspect, I suppose. So I want these to feel just a little bit bigger, a little bit more aggressive than maybe like a realistic, super realistic croc design would have. Something like that. Yeah, like fewer of them. A little bit bigger. Maybe the flow is just a little bit too like split out though. Something like that, I think. So we'll start there. Just gonna take a screenshot of this and put it in my ref folder. My ref sheet. Area. Let's see. Maybe the best way to do this. Let's make a layer just in case I don't like it. I can remove it. It ends Maracuya ends at the elbow. So this here, this right here. There's like kind of residual flow of that, but it blends into the rest of the arm up there. Did this on my Sarco too. I'm just taking a look at how I've done it in the past. This goes up again, it goes up to the elbow and then blends in there. These aren't necessarily as exaggerated as it's going to be for the Peru. So, yeah. Let's see. About 20 minutes. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this part, but I'll do my best. A few of these scales in there. This is where I need a different material because this material reacts really weird with the masking brush or something. This right here is where it's going to start to blend back into the rest of the arm. Really starts to lift out here. Sketch. Could maybe work. It feels better now in terms of masking and how those are allocated, I suppose. So we'll try it out. If it doesn't work, then just delete the layer. Marakui, since you are working specifically on the model 2 hours every week, don't you ever, when having to stop mid-work, get the feeling like you want to finish and see how cool it will look? Like you mean like extend the stream and just finish a section? Yeah, I mean it really hasn't come to that yet. I don't feel like. Usually, like, I mean, I try to anticipate like how much I can get done. I'm trying to be realistic about how much I can get done, you know, in a stream. So I'm taking like little bite-sized sort of pieces that I think I can achieve, and working towards that goal. And so far we haven't been like super off course, I don't think. If we come to that, if this takes a few more minutes to complete beyond like the 2-hour mark, I'm not gonna like I'm down to finish it, you know. It's not like a huge deal. they build up, and then blend this in just a little bit. Just outlining these sort of support scales, I'm calling them, just because they're kind of larger than the surrounding scales too. Like they're like a secondary form, I guess, secondary row of scales that are different from the rest of the scales. So I want to take a note of that. Forgetting those, because I think they add a cool flow. Like I'm seeing this edge, and I'm also seeing the edge that comes just adjacent to it, you know, these scales here, and then these scales blend into the rest of the scales, blend into the rest of the form of the arm, and then it's like crisscrossing, you know. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get here, get down. Need a bit, sorry guys, I'm getting real focused in here. I'm going to need a bit more resolution on this. We're gonna just to work a little bit non-destructively. No, that's kind of not here, but I'm just gonna bake this, redynamesh to get more resolution in that area. Then if I end up not liking this, I think it's working out all right so far. But we can always go back to the older version of the sculpt in the layer stack, or in the subtool stack. ends up not being exactly what I want. I want this to be, so these like secondary scales here tend to be a little bit blunt as I'm looking at my reference, but I want them to be just a bit sharper. Just a tad. And then there's going to be another side here. Because my references are getting all jumbled up. Be very careful about this area because this area needs like some mobility. So there's big wrinkles that form here because of the wrist movement. So make sure that looks plausible. Yeah, you can tell I'm getting really focused in here. Sorry, I got so quiet. But yeah, I'm just trying to add a bit, like a hint of texture and like irregularity to it, because I just think it's going to look better as like placeholder this way. Because there's a lot more to do on it for sure. But I think with this, it's kind of, we get the gist, you know. Part of this is like, I'm adding little like notes, this is like notes, quote unquote, inside the sculpt to remind myself how I want to move forward with it, like what details I want to add, how I want to take it. So these little like marks that I'm making here is like kind of my shorthand for what's going to happen later on when we get to do the full like texture, like the really detailed sort of texture pass on all the scales and everything. There's there's definitely balance that I'm trying to achieve between like clearly a structured, area that has a pattern to it, because there's definitely a pattern to these croc scales. They do grow kind of like in a grid. But if you just like, I've seen people who do croc scales and they'll literally like draw a grid on the croc and they'll just like hash it. And that's not what we want to do, right? It's more complicated than just a simple grid. Even though it's vaguely, grid-like. There's this irregularity is what's helping it feel more organic. It's helping it feel like a creature, So that's what I'm trying to like to work in here really quick. Snake hook. Pull out some of these points just a little bit so they kind of rake forward. Bit of like a wiggle to the edge here. Like I'm thinking about like I guess like a saw blade. Like the way the teeth kind of feel. It's not quite there yet because it's a little bit more rounded. Kind of trying to feel out the balance between like how rounded it should be, like real croc scales, and how pointed it should be without feeling very, because I don't want it to feel super dragony. This is not. It was annoying me for a second, but now I realize that those scales remind me of, they look like blades Pokemon B Sharp has. B Sharp. I'm not familiar with. I mean, there's so many new Pokemon. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. That's a Pokemon I have never seen. Um, I'm gonna just get this this row on this backside in there. Call it good. We got to do the same thing to the back leg too. So we'll probably do that next stream. That first portion of next stream, and then we'll move on to something else. The legs, fortunately, I think are in pretty good shape. I feel a little bit more farther along in terms of form than the arms did for me. So that shouldn't take very long. Then I think we'll probably move on to the tail for a little bit, because the tail is like a huge factor when it comes to the silhouette of the creature. The way the scutes look on the back edge of the tail are pretty important. So I want to get those in. And it'll help us tie in a lot of what's going on up here too. So like we're gonna have these sort of blade shapes here, here, bigger ones there too. So I think with all that incorporated, it's gonna feel pretty cool. giving little hints of where those trackways are gonna go, like the flow of the scales. They're gonna go down towards the front of the arm here. And then it's kind of weird is that there's a transition area up here somewhere that makes like an L shape. So it goes up, and then the rest of these go down this towards the front of the arm, and then these guys actually go up and around. It's a really interesting flow. That's what I was saying. It's not like a perfect grid that you can just lay on top and kind of add scale detail on top of. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Okay, mostly there. Finish this stuff up. Areas really quick. Before ending, can you say what else you plan on doing with the model Mercury? Yeah. I think I did, right? I mean, next stream, we're going to be working on wrapping up a little bit of this, move on to the leg. We're going to add a similar detail to the leg over here. Work on the foot a little bit just to make sure that it's treated the same as the front leg. So getting rid of the like tendinous, like bony feeling of the feet, making sure that's feeling right. And then we'll probably do some fun stuff on the tail, like starting to figure out what these are going to look like, and some of the scale flow here. That's what is my plan for the next time. Yeah, I think we're at a good stopping point right now. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and your ideas. As always, keep an eye out for updates about the game on Discord and on YouTube. And again, if you guys are interested in seeing more of my work, please take a look at the links. And I'm doing a lot more of updating on Blue Sky. Blue Sky seems to be growing a lot these days. So I'll be posting more work there if you're interested in seeing what else I do on the side. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for being a part of the stream, and I'll see you next week. Seems like next week is going to be moving forward as planned. So see ya. Have a good one.